got the return of MLS, which is a big news story only in the context of American men's team sports coming back is really starting to roll. And it's really starting to roll because the NBA players and teams are beginning to arrive at the NBA bubble. And Major League Baseball players are underway training back in their home stadiums. And also hockey, which we didn't really talk about very much, has agreed to return, I believe, on August 1st. So we are close now to sports being at a full sprint, effectively, from late July all the way, theoretically, through the Super Bowl. And it's going to be as wild and packed of a sporting calendar as you have ever seen, frankly, and as I have ever seen, and if any of us have ever been able to enjoy. But there are a lot of differences compared to the normal schedule, and not just because we're out of whack in terms of when these events are taking place, but also because of some of the wackiness associated with the way the games are going to be played. And the NBA bubble, did you guys see the food that was evidently provided to NBA players? It looked like the worst airplane food imaginable. I don't know how that's possible at the middle of Disney World, where you would think there would be a lot of access to a lot of different types of food. Did you guys see this,
Yes.
Danny G? Did you see the post?
Yeah, Troy Daniels posted this. He now plays for the Nuggets. And you're right. It's some sort of salad with different little side containers and butter in one of them for the bread, in a bag of chips. It does look like airplane food for sure.
You would think that Disney would be rolling out the red carpet for these NBA athletes because they're not able to just go out and eat wherever they want. And I've been saying for a while, this is going to be an intriguing sort of storyline to follow, the way Major League Baseball is coming back. And it appears to me that Major League Baseball players are basically going to have normal lives. They're going to live at home in their home city. They'll be able to drive to and from the ballpark. Now, you've heard different players. Like, did you see we had an article up about this at OutKick. Carlos Correa had said about his wife that she's no longer allowed to go to the beauty parlor. She's got to sacrifice for the Houston Astros. Like, there's different stories out there about maybe the way that baseball players might be adjusting their lives. But they're living inside of a relatively normal, larger bubble, which is a bit abnormal for all of us right now. But then the NBA players are directly involved in the bubble. And yesterday we were talking with Chris Mannix, who said that he's going to actually be inside of that bubble down in Orlando and was in the middle of preparing for that. We need to talk to him next week about all the details involved, because this whole situation is going to be literally without precedent for the way that the NBA is going to finish off their season. And we talked about this a little bit, but I am even more as the details about player names on the back of the jerseys have come out and the NBA goes full social justice warrior. I talked about this on Laura Ingram's show yesterday on Fox News last night, but I watched this situation in Hong Kong go on, where all these protesters, if you remember Daryl Morey, said, free Hong Kong, because the Hong Kong democracy protesters were terrified that China would do exactly what China has done, which is take away all the basic human rights of people in Hong Kong. And if you're not paying attention to this story, Chinese authorities went into Hong Kong libraries and pulled books off of the shelves that are pro-democracy. If you protest in Hong Kong right now, you are facing years in prison under new Chinese laws. And the Chinese authorities are cracking down on protesters so much they are begging for American support. In fact, Hong Kong protesters are protesting using American flags as their symbol of defiance. Yet in the United States, the NBA has so silenced any mention of China's flagrant human rights violations of their concentration camps, of any sort of endorsement of Hong Kong democracy. All these guys, Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, LeBron James, they want to pop off all the time and rip our country and rip our president. Yet if you tried to get free Hong Kong put on the back of your jersey, Adam Silver would show up and try to burn your jersey the minute that it was made to avoid offending his Chinese overlords. So when you guys hear that the NBA is putting social justice warrior slogans on their jerseys for the return of basketball, does it ring as hollow to you guys as it does to me, based on the way that they are not allowing their guys to endorse basic human rights in China because it's bad for business? Danny G, does this ring as hollow to you as it does to me?
I mean, I think it was Mike Scott the other day who said he would rather evoke change with actions. And I'm with him on that. I would rather let my doing do the talking rather than something on the back of my shirt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a hollow symbol for many people, I think.
And that's how I feel about it. And I'm with Michael Jordan when they were thinking about this Orlando bubble. Go all the way back to that. Remember how MJ said, let's try to keep things as normal as possible, as comfortable as possible. Let's not change the format and change things up. Let's get it right for the American public as far as getting some sports back on TV, and let's lift up the country in that manner. And let's not, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now, I understand that some players, were dragging their feet a little bit about coming back because they did not want this to interrupt a movement that they're a part of. But at the same time, you being on a grand scale on national TV and you speaking your mind afterwards, to me, that is the biggest mountain you could be on top of. So that is a big voice for you to have. So once again, what you're doing with your actions and what you could actually say and talk to a nationally televised audience after a game, that could push what you want rather than something worded on the back of your jersey. It is hollow.
Yeah, I think it's totally a sham. I mean, honestly, if you want to be social justice warriors, then you need to apply the same logic that you are requesting in America around the world. And I am sick of seeing athletes, whether it's Megan Rapinoe, whether it's LeBron James, insert athlete's name here, ripping American institutions to the high heavens and then kneeling at the altar of Chinese communists and not saying a word about what they are doing to their people. Because here's the deal. Your actions become propaganda for the Chinese authoritarian government. When the NBA players show up and they are ripping American institutions, China is going to use that as propaganda for its people and say, see, things suck in America. And the reality is, America is imperfect and always will be imperfect because it is a country created by humans. And humans by our nature are imperfect. But there has never been a better nation that has embraced freedom more than the United States in the history of the world. If NBA players tried to say negative things about China like they are saying about the United States, they would disappear. They would never be heard from again. They would go into concentration camps. Their families might also disappear. We're talking about Chinese government in Hong Kong going into libraries and pulling books about democracy off the shelves and not allowing people to read them. When Adam Silver said he had mutual respect for China, that occurred on the day that China began to arrest people who were protesting for basic human rights in China. The NBA is so full of crap, and frankly, the sports media is so full of crap as well, that I'm probably the only show in the entire country that will actually point out this blatant hypocrisy. The NBA is woke when being woke makes them money. The minute that real human rights abuses are taking place, they don't say a word. They shut up and dribble for their Chinese masters. Dub, do you find this as intensely hypocritical as I do?
I do. I think it's totally hollow. And one thing I'm curious about is like the percentage of players that will actually use one of these slogans instead of their last name, because I feel like a lot of players are going to do it just because they're afraid that they'll be called,
That's right.
not racist, but
they're
that they're not for the
they're
cause.
afraid of the social media mob, right? Because
Exactly.
It's amazing to me that in this day and age, people want individuality is just out the window. Like, if you don't do what everybody else does, if you don't get in line and shut up and be a good mob member, then you get attacked. And I think you're right, Dub. I think there are a lot of players who are afraid of what the mentions will be in their social media if they don't get in line and put some sort of slogan on their jersey as opposed to their name. And by the way, if I were an NBA player, what I would say is I'm fine with anybody who wants to make a statement, but if you're not going to give me complete autonomy to say whatever I want on my jersey, I'm not going to pick one of the pre-approved slogans that has been negotiated for. I would want to put Free Hong Kong on my jersey because I care about billions of people around the world having the same basic human rights as the United States, and because I believe the United States is still a shining city on a hill, a beacon of liberty and light and justice for the rest of the world. I'm not as interested in ripping apart the institutions that have created the best government in the history of mankind in my own country as I am in lifting up people around the world to one day be able to aspire to American values. So I would want to put Free Hong Kong on my jersey, and if I were an NBA player, that's what I would say publicly. And I understand that would be like, oh my God, what in the world is Clay Travis saying? He's stepping outside the lines of acceptable protest. But think about how ridiculous that phrase is in the first place. Acceptable protest. What the NBA is doing is propaganda, and it's propaganda for people who hate America around the world to use as evidence of this country's imperfections. What about you, Eddie? Does this ring as hollow to you as it does so far to the rest of the show?
Yeah, and when I heard that there was going to be a pre-approved list of what players could put on their jerseys, and granted, the Players Association did sign off on it, but I thought that's exactly why they're doing it, because just in case they needed insurance, in case a player was going to say something specifically about China, and there was no way they were going to allow that. And so I think that's exactly why they felt like they needed to get this pre-approved list to allow players.
Which is why it rings so hollow, right? Because the NBA and other athletes are fantastic when it comes to speaking out, when speaking out makes them more money. But I haven't ever heard LeBron James say to Nike, hey, why don't you make my sneakers in an inner city neighborhood in the United States? We're asking people to pay $180 or $200 for sneakers. Why don't you give inner city, especially in this day and age when so many people are unemployed, why don't you make my shoes here? I'll make a little bit less money, Nike. I'm fabulously wealthy from playing basketball. I want tens of thousands of people in the United States who otherwise might not be employed. I want them to be able to be employed in a factory in the United States making my shoes. That would actually be brave of LeBron James. And I do want to give LeBron credit for stepping out and drawing attention to all of the murders of young, innocent black kids that are occurring around the country right now. It's amazing how quiet things are when awfulness happens, but awfulness isn't connected to the police. Now, I'm not saying police are perfect. We got a ton of people all over the country. I hear from law enforcement all the time who listen to this show all over the country. It's amazing how the media only covers awful things that police do. And it's amazing how, by and large, stories only go viral on social media when police are to blame for infractions, as opposed to when others are to blame. What we're seeing happen all over this country, by the way, is imminently predictable. When you attack the police, when you talk about defunding law enforcement in New York and Chicago and Baltimore and Nashville, where I live, and Birmingham, Alabama, and Philadelphia, all over the country, kids are getting killed because police aren't able to protect them as they typically would be because people have decided that police are awful. And yet, the results of all of those murders, and make no mistake, the murder rate is skyrocketing across the country, and the vast majority of people who are dying are black. The people that are protected by police don't make headlines until suddenly the police aren't there and death starts to rain down across the country. I'm disgusted by the fact that our discussion in the United States about policing has focused almost exclusively on the idea that police are awful and we need to defund them, as opposed to pointing out that some police, like some members of professions all over the country, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, architect, or janitor, you don't deserve your job. There are lots of bad employees no matter what the profession is anywhere. Police are not exempt from that either. But the vast, vast majority of police are saving tens of thousands of lives, most of them black, if you look at the crime rates every single day in this country. And the fact that we have demonized police makes me sick. And the NBA is a big part of it, frankly. Because I haven't heard a single NBA player come out and say, hey, you know what? I love the police. They are saving so many lives. We need to support them, even while we recognize that they are imperfect. I heard a lot of people say when the protests were going on, oh, most protesters aren't violent. We have to excuse all the looting and the rioting that's going on because that's a small minority of the protesters. So we want to give the benefit of the doubt to protesters who are rioting and looting and shooting police officers and destroying public property. But we don't give the benefit of the doubt to police officers at all. Media is broken in this country, y'all. And sports media and athletes are a big part of the reason why. And man, you know why this show is surging? Because there's so few people out there actually willing to speak the truth there. So I got on a little bit of a rant here, but I know I got police officers listening to me all over the country. Thanks for what you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are seeing the results of defunding the police already going on all over this country, and the result is a lot more dead bodies. I'm fired up. I get so sick of the stupidity that I see propagated in the media every single day on a variety of different subjects. But when you know it's 100% what the result is going to be, dead bodies stacking up like crazy because police aren't able to do their jobs because media have decided that they're going to demonize the police and make them all look like they're awful. Meanwhile, they're out there singing the praises of protesters and looters and rioters and being like, well, you know, most protest is totally peaceful. Yeah, right. And 99.9% of police officers on a day-to-day basis are doing the right thing too, but I don't hear media saying that. You paint with a broad brush when it comes to condemning police. You don't paint at all when it comes to pointing out how many people are looting and rioting. It's crazy. Roberto, you with me that this rings hollow for the NBA?
Yeah, man, I'm more about seeing the players, seeing the players' actions and reading or seeing some kind of slogan on their jersey.
Unanimous here. First Amendment's always alive and well, but there ain't a lot of support for what the NBA's doing, particularly because it seems so hypocritical in the larger context. When we come back, Jeff Schwartz joins us. He's a guest host, set in last week for this program. He's also an 8-year former NFL veteran who happens to be Jewish. What did he think about Deshaun Jackson's comments and the comparative silence from fellow NFL players? We will discuss. This is OutKick. Want to also tell you, by the way, if you just enjoyed that rant, if you enjoy this program, you're like, how in the world can I support OutKick and help Clay Travis and his media empire, which we're trying to build, grow? Jason Whitlock's a big part of that. Go subscribe for the OutKick VIP. It is $99 for the year. Get an exclusive VIP phone line for this radio program. Get to comment on all the articles that are going up on OutKick. and you get access to our events. We're going to be doing a bunch of special events with me and Jason Whitlock and other writers at OutKick. And right now, for a limited time, you get an autographed copy of my most recent book, all for $99, all to your house. Guarantee that you're going to love what you get. Why not go sign up today? Support OutKick, support media organizations that are actually trying to make things better as opposed to tear everything down. Go to OutKick.com today. It's what you can do to send a message to the country about what you believe in. This is OutKick on Fox Sports Radio.